Like, you know what I'm talking about? It's like cloud visualization. Since we got the award for the license election.
No, it's the intro I'm showing you.
There's like an election.
There was a point today where my Chrome just went black. Like all my work computer just black. For like 5 minutes. It's black because for like an hour.
I now call this meeting of the Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, February 27th, 2025, with a land acknowledgement. We must recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is home to 4 federally recognized Native nations, the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band, Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was and still is stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. With that, Speaker Pro Tem Heseltine will take it away with our first roll call.
Alvarez. Here. Bailey.
Here.
Black.
Here.
Blood.
Here.
Bolton. Byers.
Here.
Cox.
Here.
Ediger.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
George.
Here.
Giefer.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Griffith.
Here.
Hassan Shakib. Hoffman.
Here.
Holmes. Holzmeister.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Jonak.
Here.
Carton.
Here.
Kidd. Okay. Kramer. Lee.
Here.
Lilly.
Here.
McCullough. Maltz.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Nagai Velasquez.
Here.
Otto.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Palenko.
Here.
Prey.
Here.
Robbie.
Here.
Rafferty.
Here.
Richenberg.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Shahsavari.
Here.
Shirky.
Here.
Stewart. Strunk. Okay. Sushanik.
Here.
Weaver. Okay.
Okay, with that, we will now go into our first open period, so if you'll please close your laptops. Our first open period speaker tonight is Luke with the Academic Achievement Center.
Thank you all for having me. Is this on now? Yeah. Thank you all for having me. Also joining me is Shayna Bender, the new Director of Student Retention and Persistence in the Academic Achievement Center. So I get the joy of talking about the Academic Achievement Center as the Assistant Director, but just a brief side note, I kind of started my adventure into higher ed and what I wanted to do with my life because of student government. I was once the student body president at my very small undergrad, and so it's fun to be here in front of all of you to talk about what we do in the Academic Achievement Center. Sorry. No, you're fine. I wanted to start with well, actually, there's some goodies up here. There's the best highlighters on campus, some stickers and some flyers. So feel free to grab those throughout the day. Be excited to use those and give them out to people. So there's a lot of them, so please give them to your friends. There we go. Okay, so brief poll. How many of you have heard about the Academic Achievement Center before today? That is what I like to see. Nearly everybody, which is great. That means we do our job, you know about us, and hopefully we do a good job. How many of you have utilized the Academic Achievement Center before? Fewer hands, right? And we're not shocked by that, right? We know there's a stigma around asking for help on campus, right? We all feel that. And we're here to try to break that down, right? The Academic Achievement Center is for everybody, not just those who are struggling in class. I know while I was in college, I used my tutoring service to help me write a philosophy paper, right? So all of us, no matter if we're 4.0 or less, can often benefit from help. There we go. So just a little bit of some background about the Academic Achievement Center. Our mission is to ensure that all learners have the opportunity for academic success by providing guidance through the learning process. We really hover on that guidance through the learning process, right? Because that's what we're focused on, is we want students not just to get answers, right? Like, we're not there to do your test, do your homework for you. Instead, we're there to help you understand how to get to an answer. And then our vision is to really transform into a next-gen learning center, and we get to kind of discover and define what that means every day. So the briefest overview of the Academic Achievement Center, and I'm going to dig in a little bit. We use the tagline, your free academic support package. Just like students have a financial aid package when they come to K-State, they also have an academic support package. And we're one of those pieces. So we do this through tutoring, success tools, and academic coaching. Tutoring is kind of what you think of, right? It's a student who's taken that class before, comes back, and helps students also succeed in that class. We do that through content tutoring, so it's that actual class piece, but we also do what we call study skills. And so students who struggle with time management, how to study, how to take notes, right? That might be the service they need. We even just do body doubling, right? If you just need someone to do your homework with or to study with, that's what those tutors are there for. Success tools are independent resources. I'll show a picture later, but we give out 300 planners at the beginning of each semester. That's one of our success tools, right? And then pieces like a schedule, 16 weeks at a glance, right? Those things are our success tools. And then the final piece here is an academic coach, which is a professional staff member that helps you set goals and reach those goals, often through action items, kind of small steps, but they're there to give you a big perspective, or help you take a big perspective and narrow it down and kind of come up with SMART goals and check in along the way. I like the comparison of, we all have that high school teacher that you would go to in that moment of need, right? An academic coach can often be that for you. You don't know who to turn to, you don't know who to ask for help. An academic coach. So you all really matter to us, right? SGA funds the critical work we do. This equates to over $100,000 a year in supporting the efforts to help all learners. This is through hourly wages of tutors, stipends for our graduate assistants, and tutoring and academic coaching. We've also benefited from student-centered tuition enhancement funds, which helped us kind of pilot our peer coaching program that turned into study skills programs. So it really is important, and we greatly appreciate that. So we really do focus on all learners. We all know there's plenty of other help across campus, right? There's SAS, there's the Math Help Lab, the QLC, all of those pieces, right? All support students. The Academic Achievement Center, we focus on all students, right? We focus on a ton of classes. We're not just narrowed into one kind of subject area. And so if you look at our college breakdown, it pretty much mirrors what the university is, right? Arts and sciences being our biggest population. And then also if you look at our GPA, being a learning center, right, you may think, oh, only students with low GPAs are gonna go and ask for help. That's not what our data shows, right? Our data is actually a pretty big line. Lots of students who are striving for that 4.0 come and get a 4.0 with our help. And so we're really excited about that. So how do you as student leaders help peers connect to the resources? Kind of a hypothetical question, but if anyone has a great answer, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, the hypothetical, right. So when we survey participants that come to the Academic Achievement Center, we hear that over 70% learn about it through a peer, a professional, a faculty member, right? So you all, no matter if you think about it or not, help students get to resources by talking about them. That's why I think it's critical that I'm here today to talk about the Academic Achievement Center. So here are some things to know as you all being student leaders that are a little deeper than what that flyer tells you. We cover a lot of courses. Over 80 courses are currently being covered by tutoring. If we don't cover a class, we have study skills. We also want to know that information so then we can prepare for next semester, and if that class happens to be a high need, we can try to find a tutor. We're working on The College Reading and Learning Association certification, that's kind of the best practice of college tutoring. And then tutoring is more than course-based help, right? That study skills piece is really critical, and we know that's a need across campus. Academic coaching is more than success tools, right? They're not just there to teach you time management, give you a sheet of paper, and then you leave, right? This is really about relational building and helping you kind of develop as a student overall. All students can have a coach, right? Every single one of you, every one of your peers can meet with an academic coach, and we'd love to see you one day. And then coaches develop skills to achieve academic and personal success, right? As a coach, they're not there to tell you what to do. They're there to help you get to what you want to be and do. We're referring a lot, right? Like if you're confused about your career, we're going to refer you to the Career Center. We have all those resources in our back pocket to help. And finally, those success tools. These are all free, online, totally accessible to anybody. Things like Week at a Glance, Semester at a Glance, and we're always changing and trying to find new tools to fill gaps that exist. And if you're not sure where to begin, that's where a study skills tutor can often be helpful. Some of the other pieces that we do that aren't kind of our top three, some of you may have gotten a notification of a progress report recently from my email, right, telling you, hey, one of your classes may not have be going as great as you would hope. Those emails come from the Academic Achievement Center. Navigate also has an alert feature, so a faculty member can issue alerts on students. We're there to follow up on those alerts. And also hand raises. A student can say, hey, I need help, I need a tutor, all of those pieces. Brand new this semester, you may have heard about it, is the Willie Virtual Assistant. This is a chatbot that all first year and transfer students are enrolled in, where Willie is there to A, answer questions, but then B, also check in the student. So just Tuesday, right, Shayna? Tuesday. Willie asked them, how are your classes going, right? Do you enjoy your class? Not so much. And then connects those students to resources. So it's proactive in reaching out to those students, checking in, seeing how they're doing, but then also being there for a student to ask, hey, Willie, when's spring break, right? And it knows the answer. There's a push for this to become a university-wide thing, and we'll see when that happens, for all of us to be able to text Willie. So we give out planners, stickers, and the best highlighters, as I mentioned. We're here for presentations and workshops. If you have a group on campus that you want someone from the Academic Achievement Center to come talk, we're happy to do that. And then again, you are our best marketing tool, right? Talking about it, sharing the resources, sharing the information is critical. So how can you all support the Academic Achievement Center? It's utilizing and referring peers to our services, right? As I talked about, you all help us get students. Support funding for your student academic resources, right? Without SGA funds, we couldn't do the work we do. And then let us know what you hear about us, right? If you hear students say, man, you know, that tutoring with the Academic Achievement Center really sucked, like, let me know, right? Because then we can do better. And we only know those things when someone tells us. So we want the good feedback, we want the bad feedback to be able to make change. And with that, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Senator Shirkey.
So first, thank you for coming here. It was a lot of fun working with you when I was a student tutor at the AAC. So I know that, you know, specifically in the College of Engineering and also in other colleges, they have their own academic resources, right? So for engineering, it's SAS. For math and physics, there's people for that in Cardwell. How do you make sure that, you know, you're connected with all the other campus tutoring resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, from that student lens, our website hosts the additional tutoring page, and we try to keep that as up-to-date as possible with all the tutoring options on campus. We're not in competition, right? We want students connected to help, no matter if that's with us or any resource across campus. So we do that. And then we also make sure we stay in regular conversation with those partners. We started what we call tutor talks with all of the people who are willing to join us in those conversations to talk about best practices and how we work together. So the Writing Center, SAS, athletics, all of those pieces came together to kind of lift that work up and talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Senator Hoffman.
A little bit to follow up on that. Do you keep track of if students go to SAS and then AAC or any other, like,
Yeah, we're not at the point that we're cross-comparing that data, though Shayna actually was at SAS before coming over to the Academic Achievement Center, so I think it would be interesting to look at cross-usage. I know there's still some gaps in what all departments are tracking, and so I think that's something to consider too, but I'd be actually really interested in looking at that with SAS data.
Are there any further questions? Senator Hoffman?
I might miss this in your slides, but how many students on a day?
Oh yeah, in a day or a semester?
Daily, if you have that.
Daily is kind of really hard to tell you. We saw over 1,000 students over the course of the semester. I would tell you with our move of tutoring to Hale Library in the fall, and then now in the spring we have our permanent location, we saw record numbers in the fall. So yeah, day to day it's really kind of hard to tell you, as it varies based off if it's a Tuesday or a Friday, right? Our services are a little slow on Fridays, kind of busy in the middle of the week.
Chair Suchanek.
Do you know if students prefer that move to Hale or if they liked it being a little bit more separate and private?
You know, I think based off of the number of students we've seen, they like it, right? I think there's something to be said about being in a space where students go normally. Holtz was a beautiful building, right? The oldest freestanding building on campus, right? I loved my time in there. But it's, you know, it had that feel to it. You knew you were in the oldest freestanding building on campus. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And so I think being in a library, being in the fresh space, I think getting to see other people, right, I think makes that stigma not so stigma-y anymore. I think a lot of people go to Hale to study no matter what, right? That's just where they go, and oh, hey, now there's tutoring available right there for you. So I think it's a great partnership.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any further first open period speakers? Okay, seeing none, we will go into the approval of the minutes. They were passed out this morning with the agenda and legislation tracking information. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Otto.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Is there an objection? The minutes will stand approved, and we'll go to announcements. 1, the SGA Awards Banquet is almost here. Join us all Tuesday, March 4th at 6 p.m. in the Union Courtyard for a night of celebration, awards, and dinner. Dress is semi-formal to formal. Nominations are open for SGA Awards honoring outstanding leadership and service. Submit your nominations by Friday, February 27th at 11:59 p.m. There are links in the agenda. 2, proxies. If you're going to be absent from a Student Senate meeting, please fill out this link, even if you aren't sure if your absence will be excused. 3, if you'll be physically absent from Student Senate but would like to attend via Zoom, please fill out the Student Senator Zoom request form. Speaker Requester will review requests based on the Student Senate attendance policy. Please submit requests here. 4, want to give props to someone in Student Senate, fill out the Senate shout-out form, and Speaker Pro Tem Hesseltine will read them at the end of our meeting. Fill your shout-outs out here. 5, the SGA members of the week are Jack O'Malley and Alexa Hesseltine. Jack and Alexa have done an excellent job planning the SGA banquet. Their hard work in planning the SGA banquet ensures a meaningful celebration of this year's accomplishment. Thank you for your work, guys. 6 is the upcoming events calendar, and the quote of the week is, "The task of the leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been." We will now go into commendations. The first is Resolution 64, commendation to the Wildcat Consulting Case Competition Team. Is there a motion to consider the resolution?
There's a question on Zoom. Tomorrow's the 28th, so the nominations close
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion to consider Resolution 64? Senator Shirkey.
I move to consider Resolution 64.
Second.
The author will please come forward.
Resolution 242564, author Katie Zacco, sponsored by Matt Holtzmeister, Madeline Jacobson, and Gavin Strunk. Whereas the Best of the Midwest Business Case Competition was held at the University of Kansas on February 22nd, 2025 in Capitol Federal Hall. Whereas the highly competitive event is organized by the University of Kansas School of Business Case Competition Club. Whereas the competition was sponsored by and judged by the company Management Consulted, a leading global resource in consulting recruiting, consulting interview participation, and consulting skills training. Whereas the case study written by Management Consulted tasked teams with providing solutions and insight into Tesla's growth goals and in-depth analysis of multiple business processes, with a prompt stating Tesla seeks to expertise to identify strategies for rekindling its growth trajectory and reassuring its shareholders. Whereas this year's competition consisted of 16 competing teams, including one from the University of Kansas School of Business, the University of Missouri College of Business, University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management, University of Nebraska Lincoln College of Business, Iowa State University Ivy College of Business, Haskell Indian Nations University College of Business, and Creighton University Higher College of Business, among others. Whereas some universities sent multiple teams to this competition, including Kansas State University College of Business Administration. Whereas of these 2 teams consisted of 4 members of the College of Business Finance Scholars Program who presented a thorough and cohesive solution to the prompt, whereas the second K-State College of Business team consisted of 4 members of the Wildcat Consulting Team, a program within the K-State College of Business that allows students to apply their learning in the classroom to offer consulting solutions to real businesses. Whereas the Wildcat Consulting Team members were Reagan Barr, Morgan Hyad, Clayton Tilley, and Marie Conley. And whereas the K-State College of Business Wildcat Consulting Team finished as a finalist in the Best of the Midwest Case competition, placing 4th out of 16th in the highly competitive, highly talented teams from universities across the Midwest. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSUSGA, commends the Kansas State University College of Business Administration's Wildcat Consulting Team for their incredible performance and 4th place finish at the University of Kansas Best of the Midwest Case competition. Section 2, upon passage by the Senate and signature of the body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the Wildcat Consulting Executive in Residence, Chris Althoff, Director of the Center of Engagement of Entrepreneurship, Dr. Chad Jackson, Edgar Lee Family Dean of College Business Administration, Dr. Kevin Gwinner, and the University President, Dr. Richard H. Linton.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution? Senator Otto.
I move to approve resolution 6480.
Second.
Is there an objection? The resolution will stand approved. With that, we will now go into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Strong.
Hey guys, I just wanted to give a little update. The Student Allocations Committee has ran out of money for campus-wide organizations, and this Sunday we are hearing presentations for academic competition teams. So after that, SAC's job will be done for the year.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Are there any further committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Lilly.
So this week we did our last round of expulsion consideration. In total, we've had to consider 13 people, which is way too many, but them's the bylaws. And then in the next couple of weeks, we're going to work on updating the governing documents. And after that, we just have election certification.
Are there any questions? Senator Shirkey.
I see some pending legislation that would affect the mechanics of the operations committee. Will you take questions on that now, or are you going to wait until later?
There's time for questions whenever it's after it's introduced. That's probably more.
Do you want to take them now, though, so I can ask them now?
I'd rather take them all at once, honestly.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Are there any further committee chairs who'd like to report? Chair Lee.
Hello. Hope everyone's having a great week and enjoying the weather. That's good. This is Director Adelie Easter. Hey. So she'll be joining me today. So I just wanted to use this time to kind of talk about something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and so does Adelaide. And so, how many if people in this room have heard about the Kansas Student Table? Okay, very good. So for those who don't know, the Kansas Student Table meets every Wednesday, I believe at 6 p.m. and distributes meals from Housing and Dining. So Housing and Dining services, packages, and gives those meals to Vicky's volunteers, Vicky James from the Riley County Food and Farm Council, and gives them out to students and community members out at the D1 lot right next to Izzy's. And so basically what has happened is that, I mean, Allie, want to give the historical context?
Yeah, sure. So basically, they had a huge funder that was promised funding fall through. And so what's going to happen if they don't raise enough money is that they will shut down operations permanently by the end of the school year. This provides about anywhere between 300 to 500 meals a week to students, and it's a hot meal. And so Vicky was reaching out to Andrew and I to try and talk to student leaders on campus about how to brainstorm ways to raise money. They're currently trying to raise $80,000 that would sustain for the next school year. We're not asking SGA to fund anything or anything like that. We're just asking if you and any of your organizations know anyone that's trying to raise money for anything or put together service projects to consider Kansas Student Table, because this does have a pretty big impact on students. They provide meals every Wednesday all throughout the year, even during breaks. And during breaks, the students that are here are international students, graduate students, a lot of people that don't have the ability to go home and that rely on these meals each week. And so this is a really important program. So if you guys want any more information, you can talk to Andrew.
Yeah, I will say, Greek Life folks, if you guys are looking for more philanthropy opportunities, I think this is a great way of being able to help and give back. And I've seen the impact directly. I volunteered a few times with them as well. And so I think it's a super neat program that we have. The sad part is that it isn't hosted through the university, through any organization. So it's a completely separate entity. And so they're really reliant on their own. So yeah.
Are there any questions? Senator Shirky.
Is in regards to that last point, is there any path forward that you want SGA to consider in that regard? Any direction you want to take this with, CAS covered, HGS, admin, with existing infrastructure?
Yeah, Director Easter would probably give you more context on that.
So the hopes is maybe in the future this could go under CATS covered, but as you guys will see in legislation that's being introduced, CATS covered is trying to currently just survive as is. So this could easily in the future, when they're able to sustain themselves, go under CATS covered. That would be the hope.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Are there any further committee chairs who would like to give a report? Seeing none, are there any directors who would like to give a report? Elections Commissioner Kermer.
All right, so as you know, the filing deadline for Senate has passed, with elections starting this coming Tuesday. We had 106 people file for all Senate positions, which is the biggest we've seen since 2019. 2019 saw 110 people file, and we were sitting at 106, so we almost beat it. But, so I did send out the sample ballots yesterday. If you could take a look at those just to make sure that your name is how you would like for it to be seen. I've had a couple of people submit that form already. like for example, maybe on Matt's part, like it said Matthew on it, and he would like Matt instead. That's a perfectly fine edit that we could do. You just have to submit that by 5 p.m. tomorrow. So we did have a violation pop up yesterday. Well, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of it up here. That hearing is tomorrow and has been made public on the website.
Are there any, wow. Are there any questions for the speaker? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Are there any further directors who would like to give a report tonight? Oh, Speaker Pro Tem Hasseltine.
All right. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the audit. It is done. You guys all got this in your emails today, but I just wanted to go over it. Everyone who we audited was found to have complied. However, one thing the Latin Dance Club, and Amy probably can speak a little more to this, they didn't use all of their funds, so they attempted to send us $700 through, I think, a form of Venmo, but it's called Novo. And nobody's ever heard of it. So we're trying to figure that out. I had been under the impression that we did get the funds, but I don't know what they're doing. They're just like sitting in this account. So that's something that we'll still, we'll still like track, but we had to go back and ask them for more information. But other than that, everybody seems to be doing good. And if they didn't comply or they were found to not be in compliance with the like regulations, they wouldn't have been able to like apply for funding next year, but since they all were perfectly good and emailed me back in time, they are all fine. So yeah, any questions?
Senator Griffith.
Is there any particular reason why only these 3 allocations were investigated?
Yeah, so the Pro Tem can only do affiliated student organizations, and these were the 3 student organizations, or yeah, these were the 3 ASOs that had requested, so we just went with them.
Are there any further questions? Senator Hoffman.
You may not be able to answer that. Why is that we can only fund the whatever?
I believe that for the others, is it SSOs? They are audited by internal audit.
Oh, so
they're already taken care of, but we can do affiliated.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any further directors who would like to give a report? Okay, seeing none. We don't have an agenda for College Caucus time, so we're going to skip that tonight. And we're going to go into the approval of the allocations. We have 4 that were all referred favorably from the Student Allocations Committee, 6 to 0 to 0. The first is Bill 59, FY Student Allocation to 1863 Barbell Club. They requested $840 and are recommended $750. Next is Bill 60, FY25 Allocation to the American Choral Directors Association Student Chapter. They requested $2,000 and were recommended $750. Next is Bill 61, FY25 Student Allocation to the Fishing Team. They requested $2,000 and were recommended $1,500. And then last is Bill 62, the FY26 Student Allocation to Kappa Kappa Psi Tau Beta Sigma. They requested $1,500 and were recommended $1,500. Is there a motion to approve the allocation? Senator Strong.
I move to approve the allocations. Second.
Is there an objection? The allocations will stand approved. And we will now go into final action on Bill 63, increase of the Campus Entertainment Fund, referred favorably from the Student Services Fee Committee, 8 to 0 to 0. Are there any changes in committee?
No.
Your first rights to debate.
Campus Entertainment Fund is something that we are really fortunate to have here at Kansas State University. It allows us to bring in really big name performers. Notably, last year we were able to bring an artist called Young Gravy to come perform at Bramlage. It was even nominated as one of the student org events of the year. It brings out a huge crowd, and we are able to bring art and music and entertainment to people who might not be able to afford it. people might not be able to buy a $45 concert ticket and drive the 2 hours to KC to see a major performer. But by bringing them right here to Manhattan and making the cost between free or $5, we allow people to really interact and engage with the arts. The committee also felt that it's a really awesome promotional tool for the university to have when people are thinking about coming to K-State, getting to see that we're the type of university that can bring in really big name, successful artists makes K-State relevant, appealing, and attractive. The reason for what is a considerably large increase is there's a feeling that if we're going to bring a large performer to campus, we might as well get the best performer that we can get. There's no point in half-baking or putting forth half effort on throwing one of these massive concerts when we're only bringing in a moderately known artist that people might not really want to go out and see. Additionally, we see rising costs of inflation in the entertainment industry, as well as the expensive cost of renting spaces, providing security, working with AV equipment, and having contract negotiations against other schools in the area. So just this year, the contractors, they were negotiating on it. That took several weeks, and they ended up having to come back and bump up their price in order to finally secure the big name artists that we're gonna get to bring to campus. So I think it's a very important thing that is gonna bring a lot of joy to students and a very good use of SSF funds.
Seeing as that was debate in the positive, is there any debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there any further debate in the positive? And is there any further debate at all? Seeing none, we will go into a roll call vote on Bill 63.
Alvarez?
Yeah.
Bailey?
Yes.
Black?
Yes.
Blood?
Yes.
Bolton? Brugan? Byers?
Yes.
Casement?
Yes, by proxy.
Koch?
Yes, by proxy.
Cox?
Yes.
Edgar?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
George?
Yes. Yes.
Giefer?
No.
Glanville?
Yes, by proxy.
Glasscock?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yeah.
Hassan Shakib?
Yes.
Kaufman?
Yep.
Holmes? Holzmeister?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Jonak?
Yes.
Carton?
Yes.
Kidd? Kermer?
Yes.
Kramer? Lee?
Yep.
Lilly?
Yes.
McCulloch? Moltz?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Nagai Velasquez?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Palenko?
Yes.
Prey?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Rafferty?
Yes.
Richenberg?
Yes.
Ramirez?
Yes.
Shasavari? Yes. Shirky?
No.
Sides?
Yes, by proxy.
Stewart?
Yes.
Strunk?
Yes.
Sushanik?
Yes.
Uphouse?
Yes, by proxy.
Zacco?
Yes, by proxy.
Okay. That will pass 41 to 2 to 0.
Okay, with that, we will now go into final action on Bill 64, increase of the Union Program Council allocation. Referred favorably from the Student Services Fee Committee 8 to 0 to 0. If the author will please come forward. Were there any changes in committee?
Yes, and those are not reflected in the agenda. Thank you. When it was referred back to the committee, there was discussion about following the 20-day numbers of the second semester. We found that our increase in enrollment was higher than originally projected, and therefore we had some extra money to allocate out, and the committee voted to increase our allocation to UPC by an extra 3%. So what was once a 3% increase, which partially mitigated a cut of funding, is now moved up to a 6% increase, which does a little bit more to kind of cushion the cut that inflation is going to be giving them over the next 3 years.
Yeah, first rights to debate.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
up here in the whereas clause, you say you're recommending $182,000, and in the contract, it's still 175. It's supposed to be 182 everywhere.
Yeah, thank you.
Your first rights to debate.
UPC might feel in some ways like a frivolous use of funds in that the student services fee funds the rec, we have the bond on the union, we have student health, we have mental health resources, we have a lot of very serious, important things that we are tasked with funding as SSF. And it is hard for UPC to compete for importance and relevancy against things like student health care or access to mental health resources. But that does not make what they do unimportant and unvaluable for students. K-State consistently ranks very high in overall quality of life and happiness from students, and that is certainly partially because of the work that UPC does to put on really fun events for campus community, to bring people together, to make students feel welcome, to allow freshmen in the dorms to get to know one another, to allow our international students to have fun, safe activities to do on campus. If you haven't personally made it to a UPC event, I definitely recommend checking one out. If you have, I think you know that it becomes a really positive atmosphere that generally makes K-State a better place to go to school and to have friends. So I strongly encourage you to support this 6% increase. They were cut very significantly, I think a 17% increase due to COVID. So they are, they're still operating at a decrease from where they were 3 years ago, even with this 6% increase.
Seeing as there was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Is there any further debate at all? Okay, seeing none, we will take a roll call vote on Bill 64.
Alvarez.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Black.
Yes.
Blood.
Yes.
Bolton. Byers.
Yes.
Casement.
Yes, by proxy.
Koch.
Yes, by proxy.
Cox.
Yes.
Edgar.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Giefer.
No.
Glanville.
Yes, by proxy.
Glasscock.
Yes.
Griffith. We. Hassan Shakib.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yep.
Holmes. Holzmeister.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Jonak.
Yes.
Carton.
Abstain.
Kidd.
Yes. Yes.
Kramer. Lee.
Yep.
Lilly.
Yes.
McCulloch. Maltz.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Nagai Velasquez.
Yes.
Otto.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Palenko.
Yes.
Prey.
Yes.
Robbie.
Yes.
Rafferty.
Yes.
Richenberg.
Yes.
Ramirez.
Yes.
Shah Savari.
Yes.
Shirky.
Yes.
Sides.
Yes, by proxy.
Stewart.
Yes.
Strunk.
Yes.
Shoshanik.
Yes.
Uphouse. Zacco.
Oh, yes, by proxy.
Okay, so that will pass 30 to 1 to 1. Sorry, not 30 to 1, 42 to 1 to 1.
With that, we will now go into final action on Resolution 61, KSU SGA support of a K-State in Manhattan Indoor Aquatics Facility Partnership. Referred favorably from the Strategic Oversight Committee 4 to 0 to 0. If the author will please come forward. Were there any changes in committee?
There were not.
Yeah, first rights to debate.
Yeah, so as I mentioned when I introduced this, there's no current plan to include some sort of aquatic facility in the updated KSU master plan. I think it's probably just because of a financial position that the university is in. And of course, there's that void now without the K-State auditorium. So I think this is a great opportunity for, we've already been included in the conversation from what I've heard from Manhattan Parks and Recreation, but this would be a great opportunity for us to enter in some sort of partnership with the city, Manhattan High School, and then K-State joining in with that.
Okay, seeing as there was debate in the positive on Resolution 61, is there debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? And is there any, Senator Carton? Are you debating the positive or negative?
Just real quick, want to mention, talking with a lot of people in the College of AP Design, have expressed interest in having a swimming pool here at K-State campus, plus with my role in the Office of Recruitment and Admissions with touring prospective students. It has been a major topic of students wanting to have a swimming pool on campus, so I think this would be a great thing for us to achieve. Thank you.
Seeing as that was debate in the positive, is there any debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? And is there any further debate at all? Seeing none, we will go into a hand vote on Resolution 61, KSUSJ support of a K-State in Manhattan Indoor Aquatics Facility Partnership. If you are in favor of passing Resolution 61, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised too. Okay, you can lower them. All opposed, same sign. Okay, you can lower them. Any abstentions? Okay, with that, Resolution 61 will pass on a hand vote, and we will now go into final action on Resolution 63, Resolution for a Safe Campus, referred neutrally from the Senate Executive Committee 5-0 to 0. The author will please come forward. Were there changes in committee?
Not in committee, although there should be a updated whereas clause. There are now over 450 signatures on the petition, I believe.
You have first rights to debate.
Hello all. First, let me say that I am beyond grateful to be here advocating on behalf of students. The purpose of this bill is multifold. 1, create explicit language on KSU's immigration updates and resources page that specifies that all information, FERPA and beyond, will not be given to ICE without a binding legal order. It should be taken as a positive that KSU updated this page to address today's hostile administration towards student immigrants. However, this page, their policy, their backbone, if you will, lacks meat. These statements should and will help students know that their university supports their Kansan constitutional right to education. Point 2 is similar, but I argue more important. KSU Campus Police needs to create a policy that they will not aid nor enforce ICE immigration enforcement efforts. This policy should make clear that Campus Police will not allow ICE to use campus facilities to organize a raid, that they will not hold students on ICE detainers, nor shall they make arrests on civil immigration warrants. They will not request information from crime victims and witnesses on whether they are undocumented or their immigration status as a whole. Nor shall they contact, detain, question, or arrest an individual on the sole basis that they are undocumented. In other, simpler words, KSU Campus Police needs to add meat to the bone. While making police policy that reflects students' wants and needs is important, it is just as important to ensure that the faculty and staff of the university are not only aware of these policies, but are also comfortable addressing and advocating for students' rights. Imagine a situation with me. An ICE agent is standing right outside a classroom door, waiting for a student to come out after class is over. This perfectly legal action, as described so by KSU's website, allows an ICE agent to ambush that student with questions or a non-enforceable warrant or the like. It is my hope that by creating knowledgeable faculty and staff, KSU would empower the faculty members to be the students' strongest supporters that they can be, standing up for their rights as a Kansan by instructing the ICE agent of KSU's policy and calling Dr. Lane and involving the university's lawyers. For it is this front line of faculty and staff that will protect students, the skin on the meat to the backbone. Finally, this bill aims to increase student-to-student outreach about individuals' rights when dealing with ICE. It is not just undocumented students that should know their rights, but all of us. This can be something as simple as handing out Know Your Rights red cards or formal Know Your Rights workshops held on campus. I look forward to working with the multicultural director, the DIB chair and committee, as well as student organizations such as YDSA and HALO to collaborate and share the rights that all students need to know. You could call this the seasoning, the flavor on the skin of that rotisserie chicken that I believe is the best damn deal in the store. This bill has 4 purposes. 1, creating explicit language to protect students to the fullest extent of the law. 2, creating a policy by campus police stating that they will only comply with ICE when legally mandated. 3, ensuring that faculty and staff, the skin of that delicious rotisserie chicken, are fully aware of what to do and how best to handle ICE agents to protect students. And 4, student-to-student outreach of Know Your Right campaigns to protect students when ICE approaches. I hope that this better explained the purpose of this bill. Now, why it should pass. To begin, this is not an issue that will go away. Sure, there may not be much pressure now, maybe even less so on college campuses. But which one of us is to say when that may change? Passing this resolution now ensures that the students that we all represent have their voices heard. Over 450 signatures on the Safe Campus petition, student orgs that came with us in person to be represented. While ICE may not be on campus yet, who's to say when they will be? While they aren't here, we need to take this time to ensure a strong, student-centered policy is in place so that when they do arrive, we are ready.
Speaker's time has expired.
Thank you.
Please maintain decorum. There should be no clapping or snapping during debate or afterwards. Seeing as there was debate in the positive on Resolution 63, is there debate in the negative? Caucus Leader Moltz.
I want to start off by saying, I'm not trying to be the bad guy with this, and I'm not directly saying I don't support this resolution in any way. I completely agree with its messaging, and actually I have signed the petition. I like the intent. My issue with this bill follows a lack of specificity. Anyway, just such as the whereas clauses where we're talking about guidelines reported by ABC News. I feel like if we're going to bring something like this forward from student government, it has to be detailed. When we're talking about judicial subpoenas, what judicial subpoenas? From what court? I worry that if we put something like this at such a level that we are calling attention to our campus and it's not detailed in the matter that it needs to be, that we could be causing more issues than problems we're solving. Again, this is a rather neutral debate. It's just something I would ask everyone to consider. Thank you.
Seeing as there was debate in the negative, is there debate in the positive? Chair Lee.
Mr. Speaker, I move to defer my speaking rights to Rosa Estrada, Vice President of the Hispanic American Leadership Organization.
Is that a motion that requires a second?
It's not a motion, you can come forward and debate.
Can you state your name again, please?
I'm Rosa Estrada, Vice President of the Hispanic American Leadership Organization. The Hispanic American Leadership Organization, including its executive officers and its members, wishes to issue this statement as a way to show strong support for the Safe Campus resolution. It is not a secret that after the most recent general election, the guardrails have been taken off for the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, as they have been given more leeway to engage with individuals that they suspect may be undocumented or have information on undocumented individuals, included in places like hospitals, churches, and schools. This new policy has created uproar and uncertainty within our community, and as an organization that represents Hispanic students, it is our job to advocate for them. In light of these developments, we urge the university to protect its students and community members. We ask that the administration not comply with ICE requests unless legally required to do so. Our campus should remain a place for safety, learning, and support for all students, regardless of their immigration status. We stand for the rights of all students and believe that our university should act to shield its students from harmful actions that could disrupt their lives, education, and sense of security. There is no way to put into words the fear that this has caused our community. Students should be allowed to learn in their university without the fear that the university will willingly provide their information to federal agencies to deport them or those close to them. Our Kansas legislature has already introduced a bill that seeks to fund student scholarships from DACA recipients. Although DACA renewals are still available for those students who have participated in the program, it is disheartening that this action is taking place, and we call upon SGA to represent our interests within this bill. The Hispanic American Leadership Organization will continue to advocate for the protection and safety of our community. We call on the university to reaffirm its commitment to create an environment of inclusion and respect, ensuring that all students feel safe and welcome, free from fear of detention or deportation of themselves or those close to them. Thank you.
Seeing as that was debate in the positive on resolution 63, is there debate in the negative? Colleague Senator Holzmeister.
Hello. It's not that I don't support people coming here for better opportunities. I 1000% think that's great. But this resolution here, I guess I'm struggling to see what it actually accomplishes. I think it just, it's kind of just virtue signaling. Kansas State students are protected under FERPA, which means they need a student signature or a warrant to come and get student information. Kansas State's not just giving that away willy-nilly. Also, it's asking campus police to do stuff that is not even within our purview. It's not even anything that we can control. It's the federal and state law. It's out of students' hands. And, I think once again, like the previous negative speaker was up here, very wisely said, it calls unwanted attention here to our university that really isn't necessary. And like I said, this doesn't do anything really, other than, try to make it look like we're doing something that really, if the federal government wants to come in here, they're going to just bring warrants and stuff. And to be honest, I just don't believe that that's really going to happen, that, they're coming and they're going to be waiting outside classrooms asking for papers. I just think that's just unrealistic and not really grounded on planet Earth. So I encourage everyone to vote no on this.
Seeing as that was debate in the negative, is there debate in the positive? Senator Alvarez.
All right. Hello. I'm going to be honest. When presented with the opportunity to support this, I was hesitant at first. However, I understand how important it's going to be for many of the students that we represent in this university. So not only am I speaking on behalf of those who share the same fears that I do concerning the future of immigration in the U.S., but I'm also speaking as a senator who believes it is our job to be better representatives of our student body. Undocumented immigrants make up a majority of those affected by the social implications of anti-immigration rhetoric and policy. However, we fail to recognize how decisions, like the one we have to vote on here tonight, can impact their families, friends, and communities. We need to remember that this isn't a struggle that they face alone. They have support systems, people like myself and others you'll hear from tonight, who are affected daily by the harmful stereotypes and negative ideas that influence political decisions at the local, state, and federal level. If we ignore this issue any longer, we will only be reinforcing these negative beliefs, making it more difficult for students like myself to feel safe at this campus. We would continue to promote fears that threaten our daily lives, making it difficult to be students at a university that has yet to take a stand. But that can change. Voting yes can alleviate those fears and ensure that all students feel safe, heard, and understood. There are some valid concerns about this bill's effectiveness and impacts. However, I can assure you that this bill is not the problem. The problem only begins if it is rejected. Then students realize that the university is only willing to take action to defend them until people in positions like mine are in danger. Our legislative efforts and university administration have always worked to help students with food insecurity, mental health, accessibility, sustainability, and other supportive resources. So why is this any different? Because I'll tell you, it's not fair to promote safety and security while continuing to ignore a select few and not taking this bill into consideration. This is proof that we care to represent student voices, proof that preventative measures are necessary to combat backlash, and proof that we are willing to put in the effort to do what's necessary to protect everyone on campus. I urge you to make the right decision and vote yes, to ensure that K-State continues to put students first.
Seeing as there was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Senator Giefer.
First off, I want to say I appreciate the author and all the positive speakers' enthusiasm on this. I think it is very important for us as senators to be invested in the safety of campus. I just question if this is in the right way. So ICE has made clear that their priority is on immigrants without legal status who have committed crimes specifically of a violent nature. So those are the individuals they're going after. So I think to restrain our police department and other organizations within, or to be uncooperative with ICE is perhaps short-sighted. I believe that, of course, we should follow all the legal restrictions that are there, which obviously we're going to, FERPA and all that. But I think in order to prevent instances like the Lake and Riley incident at Georgia, if that happened here and I supported a bill like this, I would feel particularly some level of responsibility. And I just don't want that at K-State. So I think in order to have a safe campus, we should ensure that we are complying with directives of federal law enforcement agencies that are reducing individuals who have committed violent crimes of recidivism.
Seeing as there was debate in the negative, is there a debate in the positive? Are you a president of a student organization?
President of YDSA.
Okay, come up.
Do you need my name real quick? Daniel. We're co-chairs. Daniel, D-A-N, Robertson, R-O.
Welcome, student senators. You've heard multiple speeches by many of your colleagues suggesting the passage of this resolution, and also suggesting not the passage of this resolution. It is clear that many of your colleagues actually support this resolution. But the looming question that has been addressed by previous speakers is, does the community really want this? Do immigrants want this? Is it the role of this institution to pass this? The unanimous answer from the community is yes. I am the co-chair of the YDSA and have been conducting the petition that people are signing to address their support. We have gotten over 450 signatures from community members, faculty, students that all say that they want this resolution to pass. And I'm going to describe to you some of their comments on this. First, with faculty. This, I hope, will address whether or not this is a real problem. I think we should listen to the people who have been trained on FERPA first. I personally spoke with members of the International Students Department, and they are extremely concerned about the threat of immigration enforcement on this campus and have had regular meetings about the threat of the Trump administration and ICE on campus. Another faculty member was actually an immigrant themselves and explained to me that even submitting testimony to me would be difficult for them because of the threat they perceive from ICE and the risk that campus could target their speech. This demonstrates in multiple ways that faculty, those who are already trained on the existing federal policy by Dr. Lane and Dr. Lane himself, have all been consulted on this issue. And while you may not immediately perceive the effects of this bill, I think that you should also understand that HALO, as well as other student senators, your colleagues, have addressed how there is clearly a gap and at least a threat, a real threat, by ICE onto undocumented folks on campus. Now, students also offered their own comments. They were more concerned with safety on campus, as you've heard before. They want the learning environment to be free from fear and have the freedom to learn without the threat of immigration authorities on campus. Here are a few of the common threads in the tens of responses we received. Students want everyone to feel safe on campus. They think that this campus is meant for education, not detention. That the threat of ICE creates a community that is an environment that is harmful to all students' education. And finally, one poignant comment was, a community member reiterated that if students can't feel safe on this campus, how can they feel safe anywhere? That also addresses the questions about why should campus police be affected by this? They currently have no policy implemented to describe how they're going to cooperate with ICE. This does not overwrite or change any of those federal or state policies, and instead forces them to ask the question, what will campus police do? And that's important. And finally, I wanted to talk about some alumni, those who have graduated from this university and have gone on to do great things. The student body is supposed to represent the interests of all on campus, not just the majority, not just your particular students, but rather what you do affects everyone on campus. Your vote makes an impact on all of us, and don't take my word for it. Take the word of someone far more qualified than me. His name is Eric. Hi, my name is Eric, and I am writing in support of the resolution. Eric, as an alumni class of 2023, who grew up with the local immigrant community in Manhattan, who has spent many afternoons with immigrant families, in his 14 years living in Manhattan, quote, I'm an immigrant. I know firsthand the difficulties of that experience and implore you to think about the humanity of your fellow students. Think of safety as critical to young people. Think that people deserve to pursue education no matter who they are. No child or youth is a criminal on their own or should be treated like one for their immigration status, much less being an institution of higher education or learning. He also wanted to address that immigration crimes are civil, not criminal, and that campus police would already have authority to prosecute criminal offenses. What you can do now is support beyond your party politics. It's about doing what is right for the students you represent, protecting community members and young people who in many cases have no or minimal control over their immigration status. Thank you.
Seeing as that was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Attorney General Navarro.
Good evening, Senators. I know this has been a lively debate, so I will keep my statement brief. As part of my position as Attorney General, I'm legislated to provide recommendations regarding legislation that may potentially affect my office and the Office of Student Support and Accountability. This bill obviously has implications for our office. Our office holds student records and abides by FERPA to protect the personal information of students. And as of now, we are working to the best of our ability to protect this information, unless legally required through a warrant, to provide personal information as part of an investigation. However, this can change. If university leadership decides that we should, to the best of our ability, comply with ICE and their investigations without a legal requirement, then we would do so. With the passage of this bill, students would have had their voices heard by university administrators saying that they would not support such a policy taking place. This is not to say that university leadership would not be able to change our policy, but it would mean that our university would be acting against our student governments and, by association, our entire student body's interests. You may see that I am a sponsor on this bill. And this is because, and I must preface that this opinion is outside of my official Attorney General position and its responsibilities to this body, I would like to see our office maintain the same treatment for all enforcement agencies and to discourage having differing policies regarding our office's treatment of different federal agencies. I want all students to have their information safe. I'd rather be proactive rather than reactive in this approach. Thank you for your time, and I hope I have provided you with extra clarity as to this bill's implications.
Seeing as there was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Senator Shirkey.
Oh, sorry, I have some after the negative debate, a motion.
Okay, is there any debate in the negative? President Vogelmoor?
All right, so like very many of the previous speakers have said, I also absolutely agree with the intent of this bill. I'm in full support of protecting all students that come to Kansas State University. I have one of my best friends is an immigrant from Mexico. Her family came from Mexico when she was a little girl. We grew up together. I have personal ties to this, and I absolutely understand where these students are coming from and the concern. Why students are scared, I get that. However, I don't agree with this bill. For one, I don't agree with the way it's written. I think it's redundant. I don't think it's clear on what we want to happen, and I don't think that the objectives are, for one, possible, and I don't think it does a very good job of conveying what we want to happen.
I think that, quite honestly, I think this is dangerous. I think that what this does is it puts a spotlight on our students, on our campus. I've kind of been comparing it to, like, imagine you're throwing a party at your house, and you invite minors to come over to your party, and you have alcohol at your party. And then you put something on your front door that says, here's what you do if you're a minor and a cop shows up to our house. If a cop shows up, don't take the breathalyzer, do all these things. And you're basically saying, we have minors inside of my house. I know that I'm doing, something that's against the law, but cops, I'm letting you know I'm sticking this on the door, so come on in if you want. But I'm preparing, the minors inside my house to be protected. I feel like that is an invitation for the cops to come up to the door and be like, okay, there's definitely something going on here. I feel like we're putting a spotlight on K-State that's unnecessary when I don't think K-State is in a threatened position right now. I think if we were having universities all over being attacked by ICE and ICE is coming onto campuses all over, this would be a 100% different conversation. That is not happening. That has happened nowhere. And Kansas is not a target right now. It's going to be your first schools that you see it at. It's going to be your UCLA. It's going to be your schools in Texas. It's going to be states that are not Kansas. And if we start seeing this happen in schools, all over, it would make more sense to be, make this a concern that we talk about. Again, I agree with the intent, and I absolutely appreciate the effort of this author, but that's my stance on the bill.
Seeing as that was debate in the negative, is there Senator Kermer?
I call for previous question.
Objection.
Okay, it has been moved, seconded, and objected to go to the previous question and vote on the resolution. We will now take a hand vote on the motion to go to previous question. If you're in favor of doing so, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised too. Okay, I'm seeing 22. Okay, you can lower your placards. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, you can lower them. Any abstentions? Okay. With that, we need 2/3 for passage, which would be 25 votes, and we did not receive that. So we will now continue debate on resolution 63. Are there any speeches in the positive? Senator Shirkey.
Don't worry, everyone. I can see we're moving our way through the dialogue. We're about done, so I'll try to keep it short. I know there's a lot of concerns raised by previous speakers about, is this necessary? Is this the right time for the legislation? And I got two reasons you should support this. One based on empathy and community values, and one based on practicality. I don't care which one you use as long as you support the legislation, so I'll go through them both. For the practical aspect, it's not our job as SGA to determine why someone's here, how they got here, where they're going after here. Our only job as members of the student legislature is to advocate for the interest of our constituents and to allocate our version of taxpayer dollars, those that pay the student services fee. Any undocumented students at this university, they're full-time, they do the same thing. They deserve the same protection in that regard as any of our other constituents. We should give them the same grace and the same respect and the same information that we give to a student who was born in America. But for the reason that I'm supporting this, probably an uncharacteristic for myself, I try to, take a logical-based approach, but I have an empathetic argument. From the previous speaker, we heard a very interesting point. This isn't going to be the first place they come to. They're going to go to Texas. They're going to go to California. And you're certainly right. But when are they going to stop? I got a quote from a preacher from Germany. Now, this man was an anti-Semite. If you don't know what that means that he hated the Jewish faith and anyone who practiced it. He was pretty thrilled when a group called the Nazis came to power, up until the moment they threw him into the concentration camps instead of the Jews. And while he was there ruminating on the consequences of his actions, he came up with a poem. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist.
Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. What it means when you're an undocumented immigrant in this country, if you're being abused by your spouse, you can't go to the police because you're worried they'll throw you out. If you are being defrauded, if you think that you're being harmed in your ability to pursue an education, you can't use the same resources that a born American can. All you have is your community. And we, as leaders of that community, have a duty to stand up. Because the previous speaker is correct. They will not come for us first. But they will, unless we stand up now and do what is right. And that's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Seeing as I was debating the positives or debating the negative, Vice President O'Malley.
This never wants to stay, so expecting, oh, there we go. First off, I want to make really clear off the start that I agree with the purpose of the bringer of this bill, and that's to protect our students. And I'm inspired that so far, most of the speakers I've heard have held that common purpose. I think that's a good thing. I also want to try and put this in a little bit of context, which I think is important. K-State has a very, 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 very small number of undocumented students at K-State. That's not the reason I'm against this resolution, but I think it's important context to have. Super, super low number. The next thing I want to say is pretend you're ICE for just a sec. Your goal is to arrest undocumented immigrants en masse. It takes a lot of money to pull off a raid. Their goal is to get as many as possible. Pretend you're ICE for just a sec. Why would you go to a university that has student legal services? Why would you go to a place of education where there are people whose job is to protect students here? I don't think that would make sense if I was ICE. I also want to set the scene even further. We have a hyper-aggressive federal agency. I think that's fair to say. And here on our campus, we have very, very, very few undocumented students. The last thing we want to do, and I'll emphasize the very last thing we want to do, is draw attention to ourselves right now. When we know we're not their priority, when we know we have very few students, when we know we're not going to be the first university they hit, if they do come after universities, we're not going to be the first one. If next week they go after a bunch of universities, this is a different conversation, and I'd support this resolution. But I don't know why we would shine this light on ourselves. That is not doing our students any service. And if our job is to protect them, I do not know why we would support this resolution. So with that, I'll conclude just by saying that, again, I agree with the purpose here, but if our goal, and I think it is, if our goal is to support our students, it does not make sense why we would pass this resolution.
Seeing as I was debating the negatives or debating the positive, Caucus Leader Black.
Yeah, hello everybody. I want to start out by saying that election season is upon us, right? What do you guys say when somebody asks you what is SGA, what is Senate, what do you guys do? I always say that there's two big things that we do here. The first of which is allocating over $14 million in student service fee dollars to things that we deem important for students here. The second is advocating for our students and making sure that their interests are heard by university administration. And I think the reason I bring that up is I think that it is very important to understand that that is our job here. And a bill like this is saying to the university, hey, we want to make sure that you guys are doing your best to protect our undocumented students. And a lot of previous speakers have brought up several very true points, that I may not agree with. But The first of which that I want to address is the fact that this resolution is not specific enough. And I disagree with that. I think it has a lot of very clear things spelled out that we can do to protect our students that the university may already be practicing, but they are not necessarily bound to. And I think it's important that we stick up for these students and say, hey, we want to make sure that you're doing the most you can for these students. The second thing is that one second. Even if you don't agree with every single aspect of this bill, it's important to understand the overall intent of it is that we are saying here tonight that we are sticking up for our students and we want to do everything we can. The other thing I want to point out, because it's kind of been a common theme from previous speakers, is that there's a sense that by passing a resolution like this, we're going to be saying, hey, we have all of these undocumented students, even though the number is in all actuality small. And I just don't really believe that ICE is going to see our body here passing a resolution like this and saying that we're harboring a lot of undocumented students more than they would initially believe. So I don't necessarily think that it's going to put a target on our backs. I think it is important that other universities have passed legislation like this and adopted these policies, just because it's not like it's immediately put a target on their backs, and not saying that it can't for us, but it's just the idea that we're sticking up for our students and not necessarily saying that we're doing a lot wrong.
Seeing as that was debating the positive, is there debating the negative? Elections Commissioner Kermer.
Like all the other speakers before me, I agree with the intent of this bill. I'm not going to repeat everything that everybody else has said, but I kind of disagree with how this bill came to be. I believe there were some people who should have been brought to the table in this conversation to be able to craft this bill, and we might have a better resolution instead of this one.
Seeing as that was debating the negative, is there debating the positive? Senator Owen.
All right, I'm going to try to keep this brief for everybody because we've been here long enough. A couple things I want to point out. I have a unique perspective on this. First off, I've lived through 8 presidential administrations. I've seen what's happened in the past, okay? My family is a interracial family, okay? My little brother's last name is Rodriguez. I lived in Texas for a considerable amount of my youth. I've seen what ICE does, okay? ICE has a history of doing very deceptive practices, such as using forceful tactics, their own legal stuff to try to work things through to force people into stuff. That aside, I want to point out that Kansas state legislation has already passed laws, already has programs to protect undocumented students who have graduated from high school here. That's the reason why we have laws set in place and policies set in place that they are able to come here, get in-state tuition, and in some cases they're able to get grants and funding, okay? So to review some of the previous speakers, the invitations have already been sent out for this, okay? Kansas has already said that it is a safe place for young, undocumented children, okay? Yes, the population that this bill affects is extremely small, but it's not zero, okay? I want you to consider yourself, okay? Consider for just a moment, 99% of the people that this is going to affect that are here at this school, that are within our constituents, they have been here in the United States so long and at such a young age, they don't even remember what their home country's like. They probably don't even speak or I can't say probably, most likely they don't speak their native language well enough to be able to survive back home. I have a unique perspective of knowing what it's like to be dropped into a foreign country where it's you against everybody else and you don't know what you're going to do about it. I can tell you, as a young adult, being kicked out of the United States, the only place they ever know is home, and then being told survive, it's a daunting task. Okay. I do know that I do agree that there is a little bit of redundancy here. Speaking with some of the grad students within the Department of Geology, a lot of this stuff was already briefed to the grad students by the department head, which has been rolled down from the Dean of College of Arts and Sciences. However, I want to stress that this is a resolution, okay? This is the Student Senate, voice of the student body, saying this is what our student body, this is what our constituents want. We want to be able to protect those students who have a legal right, as mandated by the Kansas State Senate, to be here and to get an education. Simply, it's just we're
Speaker's
asking.
time has expired. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Parliamentarian Blood.
Typically, I would say I'm usually pretty pro advocating for the voices of the minority in any way, shape, or form. I've known many a time I've been one or very few who've had a vocal opposition to something, and maybe the only one who's willing to do that. And we have the immense power and ability to be in a situation where we get to advocate for those minorities. And so I agree that no matter how many students even won, we should be advocating for. However, this bill does not advocate for students. What it does is it directs that we're currently doing something wrong, and this is how we should do more in the future. It doesn't say Student Senate stands with all of the undocumented immigrants or all of the at Kansas State University or across the nation. It says, University administration, you need to do this. And we're upset that you're not doing this, this, and this. Even though you're following all federal rules, even though there's no current threat, though I understand there may be, and instead of advocating for the actual students, we're creating yet more division and more inflammation and being inflammatory that has no bearing. Not important for us to be looking at. Instead, we could stand with students, we could actually support them, we could then advocate for them, instead of tossing a big idea right at the window about how what we're doing right now is wrong and not enough. And if this was written in a different way, if it was written more carefully and clearly so that we're not calling general counsel by the wrong name as well, then maybe I would be able to support it. But we're continually come up once or twice a year with these inflammatory ideas that get us involved in areas where we could be representing students, and yet somehow we continue to fail to, because instead of actually representing and advocating for students, we'd rather make broad sweeping political points that divide us when we could actually be coming together. And so that's why I say you should vote no on this. Maybe we can write something that actually advocates for students in the future, but this is not it.
Senator Kermer.
I call for previous question.
Is there an objection? Okay, seeing none, we will now go into the previous question and vote on Resolution 63, a resolution for a safe campus. And we will take a hand vote on Resolution 63. If you are in favor of passing Resolution 63, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised too. Okay, you can lower them. All opposed, same sign. Okay, you can lower them. And any abstentions? Okay. Seeing none. Division has been called for, so we will take the vote again. If you are in favor of passing the resolution, please raise your placards again. Proxies raised too. Raise them high, please. Okay, you can lower them. One on Zoom, okay. Okay, if you're opposed, same sign. Okay, you can lower them. Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, the resolution will pass 23 to 15 to 6. Okay, with that, we will now go into, hold on. With that, we will now go into introduction of the allocations. The first is Bill 65, FY25 student allocation to the Asian American Student Union. They requested $1,050 and they were recommended $1,050. Next is Bill 66, FY25 student allocation to the American Society of Civil Engineers. They requested $17,030.70 and were recommended $1,500. Next is Bill 67, FY25 student allocation to the Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity. They requested $750 and were recommended $750. And then last is Bill 68, FY25 student allocation to Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. They requested $1,304 and were recommended $1,113. Is there a motion to consider the allocations? Chair Strong.
I move to consider the allocation.
Second.
Okay, the allocations will stand considered, and we will now go into the introduction of legislation. The first is Bill 69, amendments to the KSU SGA statutes regarding legislation authorship. Is there a motion to consider? Sutter Shirky.
I move to consider Bill 70.
69.
I'm sorry, I was looking at that. 69.
Is there a second? Okay, if the author will please come forward.
Okay. Bill 242570, amendments to the KSU SGA statutes regarding legislation authorship. Authors Joseph Lilly and Audrey Byers, sponsors none. Whereas the Kansas State University Governing Association should continually update its governing documents for clarity. Whereas there is contention on whether a Student Senate Standing Committee may author legislation, and whereas certain types of legislation require a committee to author them. Be it enacted that Section 1, Section 020107, Part D of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes be amended to read as follows. Authorship and sponsorship. Legislation must list both authors and sponsors separately if such lists are different. 1, the author lists a piece of legislation may include any person, committee, or college caucus who worked on creating or drafting legislation in whole or in part, in any order the authors may choose. The author list shall be organized with committees followed by college caucuses at the beginning, followed by individual names in alphabetical order by last name. The sponsor list of a piece of legislation shall include any person or committee who may sponsor the legislation that the authors wish to include. The sponsor list shall be organized with committees followed by college caucuses at the beginning, followed by individual names in alphabetical order by last name. Any person who is listed as an author may not also be listed as a sponsor. All legislation must be authored or sponsored by at least the student senator, the Speaker of the Student Senate, the Speaker pro tempore of the Student Senate, a standing committee chair, a standing committee, another legislated student Senate committee, as inscribed in the bylaws, a college caucus, or a legislatively chartered special committee. Sponsors must be members of the KSU SGA as defined by KSU SGA Constitution and may include the student body president, the student body vice president, and the attorney general. The Speaker of the Student Senate may individually author resolutions of appointment, commendation, standing rule, and bills of impeachment. A student senator may not be an additional sponsor of legislation that has been sponsored by a committee of which they are a member. Section 2, this legislation shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Shirkey.
I have one correction followed by one question. On line 1, the bill is numbered Bill 70. That should be corrected to Bill 69. And then my question for the author is, I can see in the whereas clauses that you found what you think is a compelling need to support committees in the way of moderating and sponsoring legislation. But I don't see an explanation in the whereas clauses of why college caucuses also need to be involved in the process. So I'd like you to explain why it's necessary to include college caucuses in this list.
Absolutely. I think as newly being a caucus leader, there is not a lot that our college caucuses are involved in. I think it would be really good to see a change in that. I think, as College of Ag, if there's someone that comes to me and says, hey, we want to get this done, it'd be awesome to get my college caucus together and say, hey, let's write a bill on that, or let's write a resolution on that. So I think getting caucuses together, strengthening that threshold, would be a really great thing for Senate and also a really great thing for individual caucuses.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Caucus Leader Black.
On line 28, or is it 28 and 29? It says something, and I may have missed it, but it says a sponsor list of a piece of legislation shall include any person or committee to sponsor the legislation, and then it goes on to list that it shall be organized with committees followed by college caucuses, and then by individual names. Do we need to add college caucuses to that list there?
Are there any further questions or corrections? Senator Owen.
So on line 25, I guess the original piece of verbiage there said in any order the authors may choose, but then the following sentence specifies an order. Is that not counterintuitive?
Perhaps a little bit. We can go back through and rework that.
Are there any further corrections or questions for the author? Secretary in Blood.
On 45, this doesn't need the signature of the student vice president. This is just the standing rules. And then I just wanted to know what specific instances you have of where a whole committee or whole caucus could possibly fully author legislation.
Yeah, for instance, in our last SSF meeting, we all had a part to play in how we authored some of those bills. So like every whereas clause, we kind of went through and we split it up and delegated, and we all wrote a whereas clause, and we all came to the decision of how we were going to write that bill, what it was going to include. So instead of it just being Sam writing that bill, it was all of us. So I think that that's an important distinction to make when we are authoring bills.
Granted.
Why wouldn't you just want to then list all of the people's specific names who had parts in that so that they get the individual recognition they deserve and credit for writing that piece of legislation than just putting the committee and hiding the people's names?
Well, deferring to Chair Lilly.
So it's the same logic as why a committee would sponsor a piece of legislation as a whole. And there is actually a part in our bylaws that requires a committee, specifically Senate Operations, author the elections approval. And it says the committee authors it, not its members. So that's kind of the reason behind this, in addition to SSF's obvious kind of collective bill writing process.
Senator Shirkey.
I have a point of information for that. In section 4, a student senator doesn't sponsor legislation if their committee sponsored it. You could apply that same theory to authorship. Be like, hey, if the entire, like in SAC, this comes up all the time, right? We vote on everything, we come to a consensus. It's entirely reasonable that while Gavin Strunk writes the draft and I might put in one number for one word on the bill, that it was all a collaborative process. And if we're going to say that the committee's confident that you guys should approve it, it's far more important that we put that out than give anyone personal glory from authoring the legislation.
Senator Griffith.
Point of information, isn't it already the case that committees can be attributed as the author of legislation?
It is not.
Chair Lilly.
I have another point of information. That fact is contentious. That's kind of the whole reason.
That fact is not contentious.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Senator Hoffman.
Yeah, I think this is a good bill. Is there any reason that that you, the authors, do not feel that including student organizations as a list of groups that could sponsor a piece of legislation, why that cannot be?
I think this bill's primarily talking about authorship, number one, but also I think that student organizations, while they are beneficial to the university, are not a part of student government. They definitely have like their place and how they contribute to us and what we do for them. But at the end of the day, like this is student government, and there's certain committees that are a part of student government contribute to writing that legislation.
Caucus Leader Black.
Point of information, I know student board presidents have speaking rights, but can they author legislation? Or can they?
I mean, they can offer it as long as the senator sponsors. Anyone can offer it as long as there's a senator or committee or speaker or pro tem in sponsors.
Okay.
Are there any further questions or corrections? Chair Lee.
Is this the first bill that you offered?
Yeah. Thank you. Joseph helped a lot, but.
Chair Suchanek.
If anybody can author a bill as long as they have sponsorship from a senator, would you be open to an amendment that allows for clubs to author?
I would be personally. I think that would be a good idea. Then we get a lot of things on the floor. But I think that clubs already kind of have an in how they like get to us. So yeah, SSF. So I think that that's. I mean, it would be cool, but at the same time, like they already kind of get to us. So.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, thank you. With that, we will now go to Bill 70, amendments to the KSUSJ bylaws regarding members of the Senate Operations Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 70? Senator Griffith.
I move to consider Bill 70.
Is there an objection? Okay, if the author will please come forward.
No one has used this in a while. I'm at 65. And that's the wrong 70. Bill 242570, amendments to the KSUSGA bylaws regarding members of the Senate Operations Committee. Authors Joseph Lilly and Matt Holzmeister. Sponsors Audrey Byers, Brandon Kermer, Levi Moltz, and Byron Sides. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should continually work to improve its efficiency and efficacy. Whereas the Senate Operations Committee is the committee most closely related to recruitment and should remain full at all times. Whereas KSUSGA has recently struggled with recruitment and retention. This was written before our spectacular numbers of the election. Whereas the Senate Operations Committee chair works regularly with college caucus leaders to fill vacancies in Student Senate. And whereas members of the Senate Operations Committee should be knowledgeable of Student Senate processes. Be it enacted that Section 1, Article 4, Section 10, Part E of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association bylaws regarding the duties of a college caucus leader be amended to include the following. 5, sit on the Senate Operations Standing Committee as a voting member. Section 2, Article 4, Section 11, Parts H1 and H2 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association bylaws regarding the Senate Operations Standing Committee be amended to read as follows. The Senate Operations Standing Committee shall consist of a minimum of 12 voting members and the Senate Operations Standing Committee chair, who shall vote only to break a tie. The quorum of the committee shall be a majority of the committee members then selected and qualified, not including the Senate Operations chair. 2, membership. A, the Senate Operations Committee standing chair, the Speaker pro tempore of the Student Senate parliamentarian, and the SGA Elections Commissioner, who shall have voting privileges in the committee. C, the College Caucus leaders. In the event a College Caucus leader is also the Senate Operations Chair, Parliamentarian, or SGA Elections Commissioner, the respective College Caucus will recommend an additional senator to serve on the committee as a replacement, approved by the Senate Operations Chair. If the College Caucus is unable to recommend a replacement, the committee will similarly recommend an additional senator. Section 3, this bill will take effect immediately after the final meeting of the 2024-2025 Student Senate term, following passage by Student Senate and the signature of the Student Body President.
Are there any questions or corrections, Senator Shirkey?
I have a correction followed by a question. On line 48, after the word replacement, there should be a comma. And then my question for the author is kind of along the same thing as with Bill 69. So I can see the whereas justification for the College Caucus leaders being on the committee, why you think that's appropriate. I noticed that there's a modification to section 2B as well that I guess would make the Speaker pro tem a voting member, and with that other bill we passed that makes him an ex officio, I assume you want to throw that out. I don't see the whereas justification, so that sounds like you as the author know something I don't. So could you please elucidate why you want to modify section B to give the Speaker pro tem voting privileges in the committee instead of just being ex officio?
I think we friendly amended the ex officio on Senate Ops out of that bill. So the pro tem's not currently on the Operations Committee, but the reason we added the Speaker pro tempore is because every other committee has an even number of voting members. And there are 9 college caucuses, so this just brings us up to an even number.
Cool, thank you.
Senator Griffith.
Do you believe, or have you considered the possibility that passing this will make people who want to be caucus leaders but don't want to serve on ops decide maybe not to run for that position, or make people who want to serve on ops but aren't their caucus leaders feel left out from this committee?
As for the former, if they're off-put by serving on a specific committee, they probably shouldn't be running for caucus leader. And as for the latter, it prevents people who would like to be on it and can't because of the specific requirements, but at the same time fulfills a lot of the needs of the Senate Operations Committee specifically.
Caucus Leader Black.
I'm just curious, how many people are currently on ops and why the move to add more?
We would need to add more because there are that many college caucus leaders. There are currently 8, and actually right now it's 7. Is it 7? Yes, it's 7. So we would add more because we can't leave out specific cases.
Senator Shirkey.
Question about on section C dealing with the conflict where a caucus leader also holds some other office. This would also address the point that another person questioned. Would it still fulfill the intent of this legislation if the college caucus leader were able to delegate another senator to serve on the committee as a replacement at will instead of at conflict only?
This is structured to kind of match our current Senate seat filling process.
With all due respect, that means nothing to me. That doesn't give me an answer.
You asked why I structured it like that, correct?
I must have misworded it. What I meant is, would it fulfill the objective of the legislation if the college caucus leader were able to acquire a replacement at will? Or would it only fulfill the purpose you want it to fulfill? If it was college caucus leaders, only college caucus leaders, unless there's a conflict.
That would also do it. I just use this model because it has precedent.
Cool, thank you.
Caucus Leader Moltz.
Point of information, a member of the chamber has the ability to serve on a secondary committee if they please, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Parliamentarian Blood.
Can you please elaborate on this precedent?
The precedent of how senators are sworn in, or senators are approved.
So that's what the precedent was?
Yes, it's modeled to be similar to that.
Do you have a follow-up question?
I have many other questions.
Senator Griffith.
That's comforting.
Okay, so by the way this is worded, is it meant to be interpreted that the caucus leaders serve on this position by nature of their college caucus position? As such, they could then have, as a student senator, serve on another position, or is this as their position of a student senator, but because they are also a caucus leader, they are automatically assigned to this committee?
Can you reword the question?
If
this is their mandated position as a senator, or not?
Oh, yeah, if this is the question, it fulfills the requirement of serving on a committee with everything, how everything is written.
So the speaker just doesn't put them on another?
Yeah, they wouldn't, because of the way it's worded, they're only required to be on a committee, and this automatically fulfills that requirement.
Caucus Leader Black.
Yes. What if we have, and forgive me for hypotheticals, but this one is very real. What about a situation in which we have our caucus leader change maybe several times like it did in the College of Ag? Would they just be reassigned, or would they be assigned to ops and serve on two committees? I don't know if it's covered in there or not, but how would that work?
With the way this is structured, whoever is currently caucus leader would serve on ops. So if in the middle of the term, a caucus decided they needed to change who that was, then that would also change the associated responsibilities.
Would they still be on their other committee?
I would imagine if at the speaker's discretion, if they wanted.
Okay.
Are there any Parliamentarian Blood?
Roughly what percentage of work by the Senate Operations Committee is fulfilling vacancies?
I'd say about 10.
Follow-up.
Granted.
So why make such a drastic change to the membership of the committee to only help with 10% of their day-to-day function?
The main reasoning behind this actually isn't just so that you have someone conveniently on hand to sponsor stuff, because typically a well-timed email will do that, but it ensures that each of the caucuses are represented in the execution of any associated processes. And it also ensures that, it doesn't ensure, but it pretty well ensures that people with previous Senate experience are serving on the Senate Operations Committee.
Senator Cardin.
So if this caucus leader is elected caucus leader and is sworn into Senate Ops, but what if they have a complication of an outside event that they cannot physically be there at any events or any scheduled meetings of Senate Ops?
Then they probably wouldn't be caucus leader.
Follow up?
Granted.
But what if they were, and they were voted by their caucus to be their caucus leader?
That would be an issue with the caucus to take up among themselves, because if they are not being represented in the Senate Operations Committee, that is a problem. Additionally, as the college caucus leader who is on that specific committee, they are still subject to the attendance policy.
Senator Shirkey.
I have a point of information because I don't remember where this happens in the procedure. When is it acceptable to propose friendly amendments to be considered by the author and then voted on.
Can you repeat the question?
When do friendly amendments happen?
During questions and regular amendments during introduction.
Okay, cool.
Senator Shirky.
Would you consider the author, would you consider the following as a friendly amendment? On line, section C, line 44. So where it says is also, we're adding the following clause. Unwilling or unable to serve on the Senate Operations Committee, comma, or is. This would cover instances where a caucus leader has a time conflict.
Can you say that again?
Yes. So on line 44, between the words is and also, I'd like to add the phrase unwilling or unable to serve on the Senate Operations Committee or is. And then the effect of that is that when a college caucus leader has another group that they like to be a part of that meets Tuesdays at 5:30, they don't have to leave that thing to work in SGA. Or also if, for whatever reason, a caucus leader just despised Senate operations but was similarly beloved by their caucus and, within that context, quote unquote, deserving of being the caucus leader. We don't have to deal with any, scheduling mess. They can just get a replacement so that there's someone from the caucus on the committee. Would you consider that a friendly amendment?
I would have to talk with Matt about it, but I think that's pretty well covered by being kicked out of Senate if you don't show up to enough committee meetings. So they, in that event, would probably just resign as caucus leader.
I get the substantive response, but I'm pretty sure I need to know, is it friendly or is it not? So I'm going to propose it at this time in the Senate.
And I would have to talk to the other author about it.
So the answer is no.
Okay, point of information, because I can direct this at another senator instead of the author.
No.
If we want to amend the legislation, we can do that in committee or when it's in final action next week. Let's just stick to questioning and correcting grammatical things on the bill. Does anybody have any questions or corrections for Bill 70? Senator Griffin.
Okay, consider this scenario. A caucus leader doesn't want to serve on the operations committee, so they resign from.
I'm going to withhold all other hypothetical questions for the rest of the night. They can be asked after the meeting.
Caucus Leader Kidd.
I have a point of information. What do our current policies or documents state regarding graduate students in committee assignments? I was always under the impression that those were optional for graduate students.
Correct. They do not have to serve on a committee.
Okay, so then I guess my question for the authors is just how do you expect that to work for that situation? If it's optional, but then someone can't or they don't want to.
If they're oh, that doesn't do that. Okay. I'm going to reword it such that in the event that they don't want to serve on it, they can appoint a replacement specifically for the graduate school, if that's fine with them, obviously. But so that the graduate school can still have someone they feels represent them, even if none of them are able to make it because of their other commitments.
Senator Griffith.
Would you consider it a friendly amendment to add under section C, section I, that says the caucus leader for the college, for the graduate school, and the College of Veterinary Medicine are excluded from supervision?
I would not, because I think all of the caucuses should have the opportunity to be represented on the committee.
Do we need further questions or parliamentarian blood?
In increasing the head count for the Senate Operations Committee, did you look at the required head counts of senators for the other standing committees? And were there, with this addition, still enough senators, with the exclusion of graduate student senators and vet med senators who do not have to serve to still fulfill the requirement for all standing committees without a senator needing to serve on an additional committee, provided that we have all 60 senators sworn in the body.
So glad you asked. This would take the number of required Senate seats up to 49, so yes.
Are there any further questions or corrections? Okay, seeing none, thank you. With that, we will now move to Bill 71, FY 26 through 28, addition of CATS covered student services fee allocation. Is there a motion to consider, Elections Commissioner Kermer?
I move to consider Bill 72 on board.
Second.
Okay. Is there an objection? Okay, seeing none, if the author will please come forward.
So just so no one's confused, that was done so that the SSF bills could all be talked about in one section. Bill 242572, amendment to the KSU SGA Constitution regarding expulsions. Authors Brandon Kermer and Brian Blood. Sponsors the Senate Operations Committee, Gavin Strunk, Blaise McCullough, and Byron Sides. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU SGA, should continue to analyze and make adjustments to its governing documents to ensure alignment with the need and desire for effective representation and decision-making. Whereas the KSU SGA Constitution outlines a procedure for expelling members from the Student Senate if they fail to fulfill their duties by not attending Senate meetings. Whereas KSU SGA has explored strategies to enhance student involvement in the organization, but these efforts should prioritize those who make an effort to attend Student Senate meetings and represent their college. Whereas currently no restrictions prevent an expelled member from running for a Senate seat again in the following term after expulsion, which could put the organization back in the same exact position that led to said expulsion in the first place. And whereas revisions to the KSU SGA Constitution are necessary to prevent recurring issues and maintain an efficient organization led by dedicated members. Be it enacted that Section 1, Article 9 of the KSU SGA Constitution shall be amended to read as follows, and it is under Section 902 by adding subsection 1, a member who has been expelled from Student Senate shall be ineligible to file for candidacy or be appointed to a Senate seat in the following term. Section 2, this legislation shall take effect immediately upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President.
Are there any questions or corrections? Caucus Leader Moltz.
Point of information, this wouldn't stop somebody who was expelled from taking over a Senate seat if appointed by a caucus leader, correct? This only stops them from filing in the election. However, they'll still be able to fill a seat if there's a vacancy.
Oh, no,
Is that right?
It says it.
No, this applies to filling vacancies as well.
Oh, okay, my bad, thank you.
Senator Shirkey.
So since this legislation takes effect immediately, if we pass this, will there be anyone that's getting pulled off the ballot in this election?
Section 2 was supposed to read this takes place at the end of the 2025 SGA term. I'm not sure why that was taken out.
Then I have a correction to do. I defer to the author.
So see.
That was added in op, so I'm not sure why that's not there.
Any further questions or corrections? Caucus Leader Moltz.
Point of information, didn't we have it worded that way because after this, this election has already been filed. Therefore, if we put it into place immediately following this next election, it'll take place. It's not going to affect this election. Filing's passed, filing's closed.
Yes, the current expulsions will be grandfathered in for this year.
So wait, so you're ineligible to file for candidacy or be appointed to a Senate seat, but you are eligible to be elected?
No.
Because I want to make sure the timing, yeah. So
Whoa.
if we then pass this.
The question has been asked. Do you want to answer, Brandon?
Because I want to make sure, because if someone's already filed, the filing process is done. So does it retroactively undo their filing?
For this year, no.
Okay.
This year, it's grandfathered in.
Thank you.
Filing is passed.
Yeah.
This takes effect at the end of the 2025 term. This year's election takes place within the 2025 term.
Okay, thanks.
Senator Hoffman.
How do you plan on keeping track of senators who were expelled and then for the upcoming year?
Sorry.
Yeah, this, there was originally a part of that in this, it was taken out in ops because we felt like it would take place better in another governing doc. You might see that introduced next week.
Okay.
It would be put into some sort of election code at some point.
Chair Edinger.
What if you get expelled and then you get like write-in votes?
I was just thinking about that too. It'll be amended in ops.
Any further questions or corrections for the author? Senator Shirkey.
Just a very semantic thing. Why do we have a section 1 below a thing instead of just adding it to 902? Maybe the parliamentarian would answer that. Is there just a reason for that?
The section 902 outlines the reasoning and process for expelling someone. Section 1 outlines a penalty.
Any further questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, thank you. With that, we will now move to Senator Griffith.
I move the special order bill 72 into final action.
Okay. It has been moved. Is there a second on the motion? Okay. It has been moved, seconded, and objected many times to Special Order Bill 72. So the maker of the motion has the first right to debate on the motion.
Currently filed for election in a college is someone who we have previously expelled from this Senate, which I believe is part of the reason why this bill was written. I believe that we should special order this, get this passed, signed, and put into effect before the election, before the election is finalized, before the ballots are finalized, so that way we can immediately, so we don't have to deal with a senator who is in all likelihood probably not going to show up for the following term. As such, we should vote to special order this and then approve it.
Okay, seeing as that was debate in the positive on the motion to Special Order Bill 72, is there debate in the negative? Caucus Leader Moritz.
They've already filed for this election. It's not applicable.
Seeing as that was debate in the negative, is there debate in the positive on the motion? Senator Morris. Okay, seeing no debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Parliamentarian Blood.
Technically, the way this is, well, yes, they've filed, but there's still changes that can be made to the ballot. So I think it would give the elections commissioner a little bit too much leeway if we were to pass this before the election actually occurring. What I think is more important is the fact that there were already changes that were recommended on the floor to be made in committee that have not yet been made. And so if there's changes that need to be made, we shouldn't be rushing to pass legislation via special order and should allow it to go through the 2-week process. It's also a fairly, while it may not seem important, it is a fairly big change in operating procedures and practices, so we need to allow it to go through its 2-week process.
Seeing as that was debate in the negative, is there debate in the positive on the motion to special order? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on the motion? Chair Lilly.
This doesn't need to be special ordered because it could just be amended to include this term's expelled senators.
Seeing as that was debate in the negative, is there debate in the positive? Seeing none, is there debate in the negative? And is there any further debate at all? Okay. Okay, seeing none, we will now take a vote by hand on the motion to special order Bill 72. If you are in favor of the motion to special order Bill 72, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised too. Okay, you can lower them, and the motion fails. We will now go to Bill 71, FY 26 through 28, addition of CATS covered student services fee allocation. Is there a motion to consider the allocation? Parliamentarian Blood.
Move to consider Bills 71 and Resolution 65.
And Bill 73.
And allow the author to summarize.
And Bill 73?
Not Bill 73. Resolution 65.
Okay.
It's a two cats covered.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there an objection? Okay, they will be both considered.
I think the question is, do we want me to summarize? I mean, these are brand new. I normally only summarize when the contract hasn't changed much.
You're allowed to still read everything.
I think I'm going to read it all. Authors Samantha Suchanek, sponsors Student Services Fee Committee. Whereas according to the American College of Health Association National College Health Assessment, 43.6% of KSU respondents reported low or very low food security in 2024. 39% of CATS covered, whereas 39% of CATS covered guests reported having considered leaving K-State due to financial challenges, and 93 reported that access to CATS covered decreased the level of financial stress. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee reviewed the allocation request of the CATS covered to join the Student Services Fee as an annual line item. Whereas CATS Covered provides K-Staters with access to nutrition, culturally appropriate food, and support through initiatives that promote health, success, well-being, and food secure future. Whereas attending university while working on academics and supporting yourself or a family while managing finances is complex and challenging, and doing so while experiencing food insecurity is often overwhelming. Whereas 282 guests visited CATS Covered each day in fall of FY25, and 91% of visits CATS Covered are students. Whereas CATS Covered has seen a total visit increase the past 3 consecutive years, including 18.3% increase of unique guests from 2,050 in the fall of FY24 to 2,426 in fall of FY25, and a 402% increase in average daily guests compared to the Fairchild location. Whereas CATS Covered is largely funded by soft funding like grants and donations and relies heavily on volunteers. Whereas CATS Covered was an initiative that began with the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements funding in FY17. Whereas Student Governing Association has been supporting CATS Covered through various means of soft funding since FY17, including a total of $114,000 in FY18, $98,000 from FY19 through FY21, and $80K from FY22 through FY24, and $135K from FY25. Whereas in 2023, Kansas State University adopted the Okanagan Charter, cementing its commitment as a health and wellness being for students, faculty, staff, and communities at large. Whereas CATS Covered requested an annual allocation of $2,500,000. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee is recommending $150,000 for FY 26, 27, and 28. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee is requiring subsequent committees to review this contract annually for the next 2 fiscal years. Whereas the committee feels that subsequent year review is necessary to ensure that the CATS Covered funding is adequate. Whereas this allocation will be used to purchase food and hygiene products for students, student salaries, wages, professional and student staff, and other necessary operational expenses. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee encourages CATS Covered to continue sourcing other long-term funding. Whereas there are currently no formal instructions for adding a new entity to the Student Services Fee, and our governing documents and the Student Services Fee Committee recognizes the responsibility to set precedent and has given due consideration to financial responsibility.
Please attempt to limit crosstalk in the chamber while we're introducing new legislation. You're free to step outside if you would prefer to have other conversations.
Whereas the student services fee is forecasting $1.3 million surplus in FY26, as well as a $3.1 million budget surplus in reserves. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee voted 8-0 to recommend to Student Senate the following Student Senate Service Agreement, whereas the funding recommendation was made as follows. I lied. I am going to summarize. We took this contract language and based it closely off of all of the other contracts. In number 1, you will see an outline of how it will be funded year in and year out for the next 3 years. And there are no substantial deviations from the way this contract is written to the ones that are currently in effect with all other SSF agencies. Question?
Are there any questions or corrections? Senator Hoffman.
I believe there is a difference on the
Which one?
requiring future committees to review it through the next 3 years, each year. What section?
You're right. That is in number 1. The budget will be reviewed in FY 26, 27, and 28 by the Student Services Fee Committee. That is something that is being specifically put in this contract as well as addressed later in an amendment to set that precedent for all future new agencies looking to join the fee.
Senator Hoffman.
Follow-up. Can you explain why the committee felt that way?
The committee felt that this was a necessary probationary period outline. We can't remember in recent times how this has been done to add a new agency to the fee, since it is something that happens so rarely, that it's important not to just set it and forget it and give them a massive contract for the next 3 years and not check in with them on an annual basis and ensure that they're using the funds properly. They don't need more, they don't need less, and making sure they're continuing to serve the student mission that was promised and presented to us as a committee this year.
Senator Shirkey.
I have a question about line 124, section 6. So it references a section of the Constitution about constructions and construction facilities. I learned it completely through a different means that is outdated. So like the reference to the article in line is just wrong. At least on the one that's available on Org Central. So is it correct on the most accurate version of our Constitution with like most recent amendments and all that?
Hold on, which section?
So line 124 it says no construction, refer to Constitution Article 4, Section 408. So that's actually now Article 5, Section 508, at least on the Constitution that I see on Org Central. So I'm wondering if maybe for the contract language, that should be different.
That's not. It should be 4. 5 is judicial.
Okay, cool. So the one on Org Central is just outdated.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to Resolution 65.
Authors Samantha Suchanek, sponsors Student Services Fee Committee. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee is committed to the responsible use of student services fee and maximizing the value provided to students, whereas if the Student Services Fee CATS Covered will be disqualified from receiving EOF funding. Whereas CATS Covered receives $45K of EOF funding in FY25 to fund student wages, whereas starting in FY27, CATS Covered will receive $44K on a yearly basis from the Morrison Family CATS Covered Strategic Leadership Fund, whereas CATS Covered has continued to see high levels of usage from students, whereas CATS Covered reserve dollars will only allow them to operate for one full fiscal year, whereas the debt reduction and emergency allocation account is projected to contain $2.894 in FY25, Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee believes that Cats Covered is an important pillar of student health and well-being, whereas a one-time allocation to Cats Covered will ensure budgetary consistency and allow for continual operation without the necessity of, without unnecessary reserve depletion. This bill is almost exactly the same as the one-time allocation that Cats Covered received last year, except this is for $45K.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Parliamentarian blood.
This needs to be updated on section 3 to be a resolution and then resolution 65.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Caucus Leader Black.
Can you explain like how pulling the money out of reserves works with the budget increase this year for student service fees?
Yeah, so every year that the student services fee brings in a budget surplus due to the fact that it's a floating fee, any money not allocated out in the fiscal year that it was brought in will automatically be diverted towards reserves. So in one way, we are essentially just putting part of the surplus towards this and really giving them closer to a $200K allocation, except the pulling from reserves is specified that it is only for a one-time funding. We have pretty decent number in our reserves right now, and it is to directly account for the money that they will be losing from EOF to make up that one-year gap between when the money from their endowment fund, the Morrison Family Cats Covered Strategic Leadership Fund will click in, because entities are not allowed to double dip into SGA funding. So if you are receiving SSF funding, you cannot in the same year receive EOF funding, which is why they will no longer be eligible for EOF.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, thank you. With that, we will now move on to Bill 73, amendments to the KSU-SGA statutes to establish new student services fee protocols. Is there a motion to consider the bill? Senator Griffith.
Second.
Okay, the author will stay up here, I guess.
Now I have to find it. Amendment to the KSU statutes to establish new student services fee protocol. Authors Samantha Sushanik, Joseph Lilly, and Max Black. Sponsors Audrey Byers and Carissa Jonek. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should continue to update their statutes, whereas there's currently no established procedure for the addition of an entity to the student services fee. Whereas multiple entities have applied to be added to the student services fee in recent years. Whereas KSU-SGA should implement policies and procedures that ensure consistent and responsible use of the student services fee dollars. Whereas due to the long-term financial impacts of adding an entity to the fee, diligence and consideration for financial responsibility are imperative. And whereas a probationary period will allow the Student Services Fee Committee to continually adjust an entity's budget on an annual basis. Be it enacted that Section 1, Chapter 14 of Kansas State University Student Governing Association be amended to include the following. 1412, procedure for adding a new agency to the fee. Application process. Any entity seeking inclusion to the student services fee must submit a formal letter applying to the student services fee to the student services fee chair. At the discretion of the student services fee chair and the student services fee advisor, the student services fee committee may review the application and vote on whether to consider the request. If the student services fee committee votes to proceed, then the applying entity will be invited to present its case before the committee. Committee review and evaluation. The Student Services Fee Committee shall evaluate each application based on 1, the agency's mission and alignment with student needs, 2, the agency's sustainability and justification for funding, and 3, the agency's potential impact on the student body. A majority of students in the Student Services Fee Committee is required to approve the proposal of the agency's addition to the fee structure. Initial oversight and probationary period. Student services fee agreements will be reviewed annually for a 3-year following the addition of the student services fee. This review shall assess the agency's financial management, effectiveness, and continued alignment with student needs and interests to make alterations to the agency's budget if necessary. The Student Services Fee Committee reserves the right to revoke funding if the agency fails to meet the required standards during the probationary period. Final approval. At the conclusion of an agency's 3-year probationary period, the agency will be subject to the same review and renewal procedures as all existing student services fee-funded agencies, and they will be added to the review schedule outlined in Section 1403 and the audit schedule outlined in Section 1404. Section 2, this legislation shall take effect upon the passage by the Student Senate and the signature of the Student Body President.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Hoffman.
Yeah, how do the authors feel? I'm a little bit worried about the transparency in section B, saying that at the discretion of the SSF chair and the advisor, they can leave applicants completely out of bringing it up to the committee, and the committee may never know that an application came in. I believe there's precedent here by, and the tech chair can correct me if I'm wrong, that the tech chair has if a new application comes in and they reject it, they have to inform the committee, and I'm just wondering why you chose not to include that in this bill.
For the past 2 years that I was a member on the committee has seen an application to join the fee, both of which were voted down by the committee. And at that point, there was zero procedure, and the last 2 chairs simply winged it. So I think I'm already adding significant procedure and oversight, whereas right now there is none. And any unenumerated powers essentially go to the chair. The chair has sole agenda setting power as it is. So I think this is already adding plenty of safety measures and security and ensuring that this is brought up with SSF exec meetings, which happen at least once a semester, and meetings with our advisor, which happen about weekly.
Senator Hoffman.
Yeah. Respectfully, I agree that this is a better than what we have. However, I do not believe you addressed my question directly. I think having a transparent process with the chair and advisor with the committee is an important part of government to ensure that money is, if the committee feels extremely differently than the chair, that has a chance to be heard.
Is there a question? Got it.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, thank you. With that, we will now move to Resolution 66, expulsion of a College of Health and Human Sciences senator. Is there a motion to consider the resolution? Senator Griffith.
I move to consider resolution 66.
If the author will please come forward.
A member of the Senate Ops Committee.
That's what he just said. Yeah, he said that, but the sponsors will not get it.
If you leave the room, Joseph, you don't have to.
I don't know that I'm gonna do that much grand.
Resolution 242566, expulsion of College of Health and Human Sciences student senator. Authors Joseph Lilly, sponsors Senate Operations Committee. Whereas Section 2113, Part D of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes state that student senate attendance policy, and states that a total of 3 unexcused absences shall be grounds for expulsion. Whereas the Senate Operations Committee is charged with initiating expulsion consideration as outlined in the KSU SGA bylaws, Article 4, Section 11, Part H3E. Whereas Mariah Bolton, student senator for the College of Health and Human Sciences, has missed over 7 meetings of student senate, over 4 of which were unexcused. Whereas Mariah Bolton has not provided the Senate Operations Committee with any reasoning for their extended absences. And whereas the Senate Operations Committee voted unanimously to recommend Mariah Bolton be expelled as a student senator for the College of, oh, that's not supposed to say that. Be it resolved that Section 1, Senator Mariah Bolton be expelled as a student senator for the College of Health and Human Sciences.
Senator Shirkey.
So question for the author, because I don't know Mariah Bolton. Which one's correct, business or human health and human sciences?
It's health and human sciences.
Okay, so I have a correction. Change line 22 to College of Health and Human Sciences instead of College of Business Administration.
Senator Hoffman.
I have a correction. I don't believe that "and" on line 9, 6 words from the end of that line, should be there.
It should be there. It states the student senate attendance policy, and it also more specifically
I
states
didn't read
that.
it. Yep, thank you. I didn't read it. I didn't read it.
Any further questions or corrections for the author? Senator Shirkey.
So, I do have a more serious question. I think you covered this maybe 3 or 4 sentences ago in a committee report, but what kind of notice do you give senators that are potentially or are eligible for expulsion? How do you make sure that they can make their case? What opportunities?
I email them in the case of the so in the first round I gave them 2 weeks advance notice, and everyone either responded within 48 hours or the day they were required to respond. So clearly that was way too much time. So for the second round it was 1 week, but in this particular case the senator was reached out to a very large number of times by both myself and my vice chair.
Thank you.
Any further questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Senator Kermer.
I move the special order resolution 66.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. The maker of the motion has first rights to debate.
The decision has already been made by the Senate Ops to expel Mariah Bolton. From my understanding, is that she hasn't responded. I think she's maybe responded to emails, but she has not responded to emails, and she refuses to resign. So I think we should just get out of the way now.
Seeing as there was debate in the positive on the motion, is there debate in the negative? Senator Hoffman.
I stand up here more so to just ask questions. Can I get a positive speaker to explain to me why expelling the senator now is necessary? Last week I understood the reasoning behind it as it was causing quorum issues. I generally I feel like expediting bills is harmful. I like time to think on it, even if this seems to be a pretty clear-cut case. But that's my main concern. Thank you.
Cogsir Maltz.
So I'm the caucus leader for the Mighty College of Health and Human Sciences, and all 3 but almost 2 members of it. I'll just give you guys some information regarding, I've reached out to this specific senator about 13 different times on about 3 different apps together. I think by expelling this member now, making sure it gets done, I just think it's a statement. I mean, people all too often come into Senate and they just treat it like nothing. You're here to represent your colleges, and I think it's a slap in the face to those colleges and, maybe the people who don't have the opportunity. Yes, in HHS there's ample opportunity, but to those of other colleges where there's not, it's a joke. So I think by doing this, we're making a statement, and we're saying this isn't a joke. We're not here just for fun.
Since that was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative on the motion? Seeing none, is there debate in the positive? Chair Lilly.
Aside from the whole swinging the hammer bit, I'm working with the emerging leaders to fill the rest of the seats with interim senators, and if we do it now, then I can get 1 additional one sworn in next week.
Seeing as there was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there any further debate in the positive? Seeing none, is there any further debate at all? Okay, with that, we will now take a hand vote on the motion to special order Resolution 66. If you're in favor of special ordering the resolution, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised 2. Okay, you can lower them, and the motion will pass. We will now go into final action on Resolution 66. So if the author of the resolution will please come forward. Were there changes?
Technically, yes, but not quite yet.
You have first choice to debate.
So basically, this person has expressed interest in not being in Senate and simply has not filled out the form. You would have a pretty tough time arguing against this.
Seeing as that was debate in the positive, is there debate in the negative? Seeing none, is there debate in the positive? And is there any further debate at all? Okay, seeing none, we will take a hand vote on Resolution 66, expulsion of a College of Health and Human Sciences student senator. If you're in favor of the resolution, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised 2. Okay, the motion passes. We will now go into second open period. Are there any second open period speakers? Any second open period speakers? Senator Hoffman.
Brian, I forgot to send this to you, but I'm going to send it to you and you can put it on later. I managed a band. Oh, wow, I messed it up. I managed a band, Grey Garden. If anybody's going to be up 12 to 2 p.m. a.m. tonight, you can look on the radio and listen to it. They'll have a 30-minute live session and then an hour-and-a-half interview. I don't know why they agreed to this, but they did, and it is my job to promote it. Also, if you want merch, I can get it to you. But please listen to it. It's good stuff. Thank you. I'll sit for questions. If anybody wants. Anybody want questions?
Chair Sushanek.
Yeah.
Are you actually in the band?
Yes. Eventually. Maybe. No, I'm not. I lied.
Senator Alvarez.
Do I have to pay for the merch?
Yes, but I can get you a discount. It's really cool. I'll wear it next week.
Senator Morris.
How big of a discount?
Oh, you have to. It depends who you are, to be honest. You know, but for you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Are there any further second open period speakers? Okay, seeing none, we will go into Senate shoutouts.
Okay. Shout out to Making Up Words. Shout out Brandon for fetching several placards tonight. Shout out Alexa for getting a bribe and not realizing it. Shout out to yelling in the mic, pass the Tylenol. Shout out to special ordering being a debatable motion. Shout out to Brian for going through Bill 64 and individually replacing the dollar amount instead of using the search and replace function. So meticulous. Shout out to Andrew and Joseph for representing the judicial branch. We miss you. Shout out to Shout out to Captain Lilly for keeping our Army's logistics top notch. Even as Speaker Questa pushes for deeper involvement, the rank of major is just a stone's throw away. Shout out to Henry Kissinger for that boom of a quote. Shout out to the best damn deal in the store. Shout out to getting grilled for 20 minutes on introduction. Shout out to being impatient when it comes to questions. Rip Technoblade, you were a real one.
We'll now go into reference of legislation. Bills 69 and 70 will be referred to the Senate Operations Committee. Bill 71 to SSF. Bill 72 to Senate Ops. Bill 73 and Resolution 65 to SSF. And that is it. We'll now go into second roll call.
Alvarez. Here. Bailey. Here. Black. Blood.
Here.
Byers.
Here.
Cox.
Here.
Ediger.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
George.
Here.
Giefer.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Griffith.
Here.
Hassan Shakib. Hoffman.
Here.
Holmes.
Here.
Holzmeister, Jacobson, Jonak, Parton,
Here.
Kidd,
Here.
Kermer,
Here.
Kramer,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Lilly,
Here.
McCullough, Maltz,
Here.
Morris,
Here.
the guy Velasquez,
Here.
Otto,
Here.
Owen,
Here.
Phillips,
Here.
Cray,
Here.
Robbie,
Here.
Rafferty,
Here.
Richenberg,
Here.
Ramirez, Shaw Savari,
Here.
Shirky,
Here.
Stewart,
Here.
Strunk,
Here.
Sushanik,
Here.
Weaver, and that's it.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Chair Edgar?
I'm going to adjourn until next Thursday at 7:00.
Is there a second?
At the.
Second. We stand adjourned.